Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. The moment I've been waiting for. Detroit Lions reporter for SI, that's Sports Illustrated, and you can catch him at Detroit Sports Podcast on his Twitter. Our guy, John Maakaron. What up, though, man?
What's happening, my naysayers? What's good today?
Oh, my God.
They say us, man. Come on.
Don't
That's
say
right.
the hardy are.
That's right. When I saw that, I thought it was crazy because, like everybody else, I was like, Reese Davis ain't gonna be saying that kind of stuff. And then Pat McAfee brought it up.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you gotta do what you gotta do, baby.
That was great.
That was a great moment when Pat McAfee interrupted him and was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
How you doing, man? How was things down in Antelope Park? I know they released the piece Dan Campbell did for his press conference, but what was everything beforehand after with the players? Anything interesting today?
Yeah, it was real interesting. First and foremost, though, I do want to bring up your point regarding Aiden Hutchinson. Fuck yeah, he's a dirty player. Look, Dan Campbell set the tone day one. He walks up to the microphone and says, we're going to bite kneecaps, and when you knock us down, we're going to get up again and bite kneecaps again. The theme of the defense is violence, so you never apologize for being a violent football team. The person that got to get that memo was Derek Barnes. You had the chance to destroy Dak Prescott, and I don't know what you're doing trying to tackle like this. You had your moment to be Ray Lewis and destroy somebody, and you missed it. So I think that this football team has got a quiet confidence, and they're definitely looking forward to moving forward. Look, all year, this locker room has been the same, really, week in, week out. Whether they lose, whether they have a great game, it's a definite locker room that's chill. They know what's expected of them, and I think this football team, there's one team in this league that you don't want to be, and that's the Minnesota Vikings, because they're about to face an angry football team, and they're going to take an ass-kicking this Sunday.
And speaking of that, you obviously, Dan Campbell said he's not resting the guys coming into this game. There still is an outside chance that the Lions can get the number 2 seed if all the pieces fall correctly. Do you agree with that decision of not resting these guys for the Vikings, or do you think you should give them a little time off before the playoffs?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's going to be debated and looked at. Look, I'm not of the opinion that you rest players, especially when you do have something to play for. There is an opportunity, should Dallas and Philadelphia lose, that you could be the number 2 seed, and I don't think you want to be show weakness like the Rams did, starting to showcase that they're going to rest a bunch of players, probably trying to duck the Lions. And here's the thing. Here's the motivating factor that I see. I think that when you have a group of competitors, like you guys said, here's the best thing that can happen. You get out to a 35-0 lead at halftime, then you can rest Jared Goff, then you can rest Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you can play Craig Reynolds at running back. So you play, the hope is, and I think it's going to happen, I think that the Lions are one really angry, frustrated football team regarding what happened last weekend, and they're poised to take it out on the Vikings. And if you're Dan Campbell, you say, look, guys, get out to 35-0 lead. Here's the number. You hit it, you guys sit. And I think that you obviously want to go into the postseason as healthy as possible, but I think this football team needs as much experience as possible each and every game that you go up against a competitor. It's a great opportunity to learn, hone your skills. You're going to get some players back, maybe in C.D. Deuce and Aleem McNeil. I think that opportunity to play is always valuable, but there's always that other side of it that if something happens to Jared Goff, it would be a catastrophe. Yeah. But I think this football team definitely is poised to do some things this Sunday. I think the fans are going to be very, very happy.
I agree with you. And honestly, with like a coaching staff full of former players, like I'm sure like eyes and ears will be on like players that may need the rest at some point during the games. Okay, like you're done for the day. Like I don't think we'll see J-Mo, it sounds like, with the ankle situation. If he's not even practicing yet, he'll probably be sitting out. Like I think they'll keep an eye out for those type of guys. But my question for you is I've kind of switched somewhat of a stance of how far I think this team can go in the playoffs after listening to Nate Hutchinson on the St. Brown Brothers podcast today. He was supremely confident, and he thought back to the time that Michigan lost to Michigan State and how kind of like motivated them to move past that. Is this turnaround for this defense real? And are your expectations of this team changing at all when it comes to the playoffs?
Yeah, it was really interesting how the season kind of has gone up and down with expectations. You had a stretch there where people were really believing this is a Super Bowl caliber team. I think the biggest question marks you do have are on defense, but I think the blessing is you're going to get three good, solid players back on defense that I think is going to definitely bolster the Lions' chances of advancing. You look at it and you say, man, it could fall into the Lions' lap. First round, you play the Packers. I think that's a great matchup for the Detroit Lions as opposed to the Rams. There would be so much noise surrounding the game against the Rams that you recognize, oh boy, that could be something that the other side with Matthew Stafford are equally as motivated as the Lions. I think the Lions definitely will have confidence knowing that they've game planned against them twice, wanting revenge from the last contest. So I look at it and I say, this Lions football team has a great opportunity to advance. And you look at it, I think this football team, when they're clicking on all cylinders and you see Jared Goff being protected, you nearly have 2 running backs that have 1,000 yards. You have Jamison Williams, who now gets 1 deep ball a game. I'm hoping that he can do more in the postseason. It's all there, guys, for the Lions to have success at the highest level. And I think they're going to execute. You have Jared Goff, who has the experience leading a team. It really does. It's unfortunate that Detroit doesn't get that second home playoff game. But if the opportunity presents itself that you defeat the Packers in the first round and you play the Dallas Cowboys, boy, what more motivation do you need to go out there? And I hope the refs do screw the Lions. I hope everything goes against the Detroit Lions. You know why? Because they're resilient, and I think they find a way to win the rematch. And I hope that if you're going to get to the NFC title game, what better way than to shut up the dumbass Cowboy fans?
Oh man, that would be beautiful
for them to take pride in that win, bro.
Yeah.
It disgusts me, man. Disgusts me.
It is disgusting.
Fucking losers.
And, speaking of the game and the end of that game, I just wanted to know if you had any updates. We saw Laporta and Jamison Williams both kind of, hobble off the field a little bit there at the end of the game for the offense. Has there been any updates of the health of those two guys coming into this week against Minnesota?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Dan Campbell has been ornery this week, especially with the media, myself. I asked Dan Campbell Monday about Sam Laporta and JMO. He gave the update that Jamison Williams is day-to-day and said that Sam Laporta is good. So obviously, you wait a couple days to see. And what I like to do, and a lot of reporters like to do, is because during practice, we only have a short amount of time, is we count the players. And so to any advantage that we can get from Dan Campbell regarding the count. So today I asked, is Jamison Williams and Sam Laporta practicing? And he told me that Jamison Williams was not practicing. And he goes, why do you keep asking about Sam Laporta? Do you know something that I don't? And I froze for a second because obviously it was reported that after the game he had a bad limp. But by all accounts, from what Dan Campbell's saying, Sam Laporta's good. He told me he was good on Monday, told me again that he was good today. So Sam Laporta's good, and I expect him to fully play. Dan Campbell's been ornery, but luckily for me, still asking the questions to Dan Campbell every time I go out there. I expect, Jamison Williams day-to-day, if the decision's there, maybe to not play him, maybe you decide to sit him out because obviously he does have impact, but I don't think you really need him against the Minnesota Vikings. You got enough talent, and Nick Mullins is shown that he's not the best signal caller there for the Vikings. I mean, it's like a rotating chair there for the Vikings. So I think the health situation for the Lions is pretty decent right now.
Yeah, I peeped that. He's like, do you know something I don't? About Sam Laporta or whatever.
It's not that deep, Dan. I'm just asking so I don't have to count, man. That's the secret. I don't want to count. I only got 10 minutes, and if I know a couple players aren't there, it saves me time. And obviously knowing that Jamison Williams wasn't going to practice, you get out a practice report as early as possible. But, man, yeah, I like the fact that I probably know the message from Dan is take it out on the field, leave it there, and make your opponents pay. That's the message.
Do you have any inside information or your feel for what the Isaiah Buggs situation was before it finally kind of, being laid to rest this week with him being waived?
Yeah, it's what an interesting situation for Isaiah Buggs. Obviously, with the start of the season, obviously the stuff that he posted on social media probably didn't ingratiate himself really well. Look, all you can do is read between the lines. I don't have official knowledge. I did spend a lot of time talking to Isaiah Buggs after he had his incident on social media where he scrubbed things. He buttoned up a little bit, but did share. Obviously, when your playing time is reduced or you're not viewed as one of the guys, and he pretty much knew that he was not one of the guys that Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn were going to go to bat for. I mean, just listen today. You can get a sense. Dan Campbell's an open book. You heard how he talked about Bruce Irvin, and he said, man, what a pro, somebody that we really kind of felt like, had some situations. And when he talked about Isaiah Buggs, it was like, it was the best situation for both parties. It's a tough decision. Look, here's what happened. I think that from what has been reported, Isaiah Buggs didn't come to certain OTAs. I think that maybe put a sign out there for the Lions that he wasn't, quote unquote, all in. And you look at the tape sometimes, Dan Campbell often said that, hey, for certain positions, you just got to do your job. And sometimes when you look at the tape, Isaiah Buggs was out of position or not doing exactly what his responsibility was, which caused plays. Unfortunately, when he did get his opportunity, he made some plays. But for the Lions, you look at it and you say it's always a competition. And I think that he fell down the depth chart. He wasn't as high as a priority for the Detroit Lions. That's why they made him a healthy scratch, and he had some injury situations. So that combination just made it so that when they looked at the numbers game, he was one of the first people on the chopping blocks.
And I have the same question, but with Bruce Irvin. Because obviously, you have James Houston coming back, so that is probably a big factor in them deciding to move on from Bruce. But we saw him in the games that he played provide an edge rushing punch to this Lions team. We thought he could be a guy who's been in the playoffs before, won a Super Bowl before. Maybe he could help this young team, but did they just decide that they were good with Houston coming back and really didn't need him anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan Campbell did elaborate a little further. He said that Bruce Irvin couldn't commit, indicating that probably he was going to be a factor, that the Lions did want him, but maybe some factors away from the field played into it. But you look at his play, guys, I know you saw that he did have a sack and he did have that experience, but you look at a complete game, this is a 36-year-old veteran, and his value was more in the locker room than it was going to be on the field, and his play was up and down. It was not stellar. You look at his PFF numbers, and I know people debate that, but you also look at his play at times. He wasn't as impactful maybe as people would expect. And you realize, too, yes, James Houston is coming back. You realize, too, that you got still Tyson Alualu, who's also a veteran on that roster. And I just think that when the time came, I think Bruce Irvin, this was a mutual parting of the ways. And I understand. Definitely people loved that they saw that he had the potential for sacks. But when you really turn on the tape, play in, play out, he had a limited role, and the Lions are not going to miss him all that much.
I'm with you. And then I guess I have this one last question, too. It's more of a question. Cause I know AG.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Do you believe in ghosts? That actually is one I will ask you. But I feel like the CJ stuff's been thrown at him in a couple of different ways. Can you just point blank ask him, is there a way we're going to see CJ, Kirby, Branch, and Iffy on the field at the same time? Or I guess, because I know he avoids, the controversy between he and Iffy. But I'm just wondering if there's a way to utilize CJ, GJ somehow with allowing those guys in the field at the same time. Because Spinny thinks.
Yeah, absolutely.
He asks,
absolutely,
CJ,
guys.
Play outs? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. No. When you guys look at it, there's certain a package called the dime package. You get 6 defensive backs. So you have an opportunity when you look at it. Dan Campbell said, why is everybody saying it's CD or Iffy? Look, I think there's opportunities when you play 1 linebacker and 6 defensive backs in certain situations. It's a little more risky. It makes it so that things can open up in the run game and things like that. But this Lions football team, I think, is going to be definitely upgraded when CD Deuce and James Houston and Aleem McNeil come back. And here's what it can provide. It can also boost the pass rush when you know that you got 3 potential guys at safety position that can be around the football. It gives you flexibility. And that's what Aaron Glenn is going to covet. You can move CD Deuce at the nickel spot, give Brian Branch a spell. You can move potentially Iffy Melifonwu to the cornerback spot like you guys have brought up in the past. You got options, and you got so many different situations that it just is going to bode well for the Lions and really is going to make it challenging for a quarterback like Jordan Love. Can you imagine your first playoff game on the road? Ford Field's going to be going apeshit, and you got CD Deuce, Kirby Joseph, and Ifeatu Melifonwu, all, if you make a mistake, can pick off the football.
Yeah.
But then I think Chris has a question for you, too.
Yeah. So my question is regarding those 3 returning. What are fair expectations to place on each of them coming back from their injuries? James Houston, Aleem, and CJ DJ.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ali McNeil will hit the ground running. I think that he was wearing a brace today at practice that we observed. I think he'll be stout on the inside. He probably is a player you can count on the most. CD Deuce, I think that when you look at it, I think from the injury that he had, I think that for him to be able to come back, I think that you expect him as well to be out there and provide a spark and also run things and keep things calm when the pressure is the highest. I still think Ifeatu Melifonwu is going to have a strong role. James Houston, I think getting an extra week should hit the ground running as well and should be a force. You expect him when he's out there that the Lions don't typically, when there's injury situations, they don't put players back out there unless they feel like, okay, they can handle as much as possible. So that's why I think CD Deuce playing potentially and Ali McNeil this week, get them acclimated. And then, look, Chris, you saw it last year. Even if James Houston's role is third down sack specialist, he's so good at what he does that he can come in primed, and that can only bode well for Aiden Hutchinson, because I think the key for the Lions defensively obviously is going to be how the secondary handles the coverage, and Aiden Hutchinson, can he wreck the opposing quarterback? So James Houston coming back can only be a great thing for the Lions.
John, man, I appreciate you taking the time with us. I know we joke around and laugh all stuff, our chat as well, but I appreciate your insight and you taking the time. We're not able to get inside the locker room, and you are, so I appreciate you sharing that knowledge with us. You want to shout anything before we let you go?
Yeah, absolutely. Today, you look, the blessing of the job is don't have any fear. So obviously I know that people want to talk about what happened Saturday. So the guy that people want to know about, Dan Skipper, the man is 6'10", and the man is imposing. But when I asked him, hey, you got a couple minutes? Absolutely. And allowed me and several reporters to ask him questions. He broke down what happened, and he reacted to the NFL putting out some shitty propaganda video that's the embarrassment of the league. I mean, it looks worse quality than when we started 10 years ago. I mean, you're the billion-dollar NFL, and you're putting out some grainy, shitty-ass video. Well, Dan Skipper responded to it. I put up an article to some of the responses he had to my questions. Was very gracious. Visit All Lions and check out our work. Like you said, we're there every day, bringing you the best information and trying to get as much knowledge inside so we can share with everybody involved.
Thank you so much,
John. You're the fucking man. Do you believe in ghosts?
Hell no, I don't believe in ghosts.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, John.
I fucking love that guy.
Yeah, John's the man, dude.
Started off ripping naysayers.
He's so good. Yeah, he's so
He's there with the hard ER too. The
hard on.
John is the man, and he's right. Skip's cool. We met Skip at the game.
Yeah. Very imposing. Like
giant human being, dude.
And sweaty.
Yeah.
That's
why when he was screaming at that ref, I would be like, dude, I would be shitting my pants.
Did you see Dan Campbell one hand throwing back a little bit there?
Oh yeah, MCDC's cut, bro. It's cut up.
I love having
I'm trying to go get shoulders like him today.